Thanks very much, Lascaux Corla. Excuse me. I welcome the opportunity to partake in this debate, and it is indeed very timely. And as you have, Minister, outlined, there is so much happening in the whole area of the administration of justice, and the issue which is before us here tonight is hugely central to all of the proposed reforms, which I think are welcome. I just want to say at the outset that I fully agree with the principle of independent appointment, but I think the bill which has been offered by Deputy Ross completely misses the point. Completely misses the point, which has been debated in this House quite a lot over the last number of months. I think everybody in this House is fully in agreement with the establishment of an independent policing authority. And if we're to follow through the trust of what Deputy Ross has offered here in his bill, you would be denying an independent policing authority its main function, which would support and sustain its independence. That would be the appointment of the most senior person in Garda Síochána and his or her senior management team. So it doesn't, the bill to me doesn't make any sense at all. And I was glad, Minister, that you said that you will be opposing it, because my party would be opposing it in any respect because of what's contained in it. We have a number of vacancies at the top of Garda Síochána at the moment. Obviously, we have Commissioner, which we know about. We have a Deputy Commissioner vacancy, an Assistant Commissioner vacancy, and 3 Chief Supers. So there is a lot of spare capacity at the top of Garda Síochána. And yes, the right people have to be found in relation to that. And Minister, you addressed the issue in relation to the filling or the appointment of the current vacancy at Commissioner level within Garda Síochána, and I think in fact I've tabled it as my #1 priority for our oral PQs next week. And possibly some of what you've said is addressing the questions that I have. But I think it would be worth your while considering staggering the appointment until we have an independent policing board. Or I also think it may merit, because your timeline is very ambitious, that we would have a fully functioning independent policing board established by the end of the year. It's very ambitious, and I think we have to obviously be ambitious and to aim to reach targets. But what we did learn on our trip last week, and I'll go into that in a minute, in Scotland they established an interim independent policing board while they were getting themselves together to launch themselves formally. So I think there is some merit in that, and you should consider it, because it may not be helpful to the person who's appointed as Commissioner, and if that appointment is to run for a 4 or 5 year period, whatever the standard length of time is, if that person is appointed in advance of the new independent policing authority being established, it may just be a cause to weaken either of their positions down the road, and that's something that we don't want. Look, I mean, I also want to agree with a lot of the previous contributors in relation to Garda Síochána. They're a very beat-up body of people within our state at the moment. There's no two ways about it. We all interact with them every single day of the week, and I think they're looking to us for hope. And I think we have to give them that hope, and we have to support them. And I've always tried to temper my remarks. Yes, we have to hold them to account. And yes, we have to criticise them. And God knows they don't like taking criticism. None of us like taking criticism. And Garda Síochána in particular don't like taking criticism. And I think there has to be a cultural change within Garda Síochána in relation to that. And I think they're beginning to see the need for that, and to accept the need for that also. But I don't agree with some of what has been said here today, because it's throwing the wet blanket over the entire force that there's a cancer of cronyism. I also heard that there was an incestuous relationship and that there's lots of things rotten within Garda Síochána. And that was not helpful. Yes, there was problems. We had issues with whistleblowers. We have issues with meeting standards, with malpractice. We can debate all the issues all over again, right? And it won't get us, it won't move us forward. We've learned from them. But the language in this debate, or at least some of it, I think, is ill-tempered and isn't warranted and isn't justified. And the message that some people are trying to send is that anybody or everybody who has been promoted within Garda Síochána didn't merit their promotion. That's the message of what some people are saying in here tonight, and I think that is very, very wrong. And I didn't hear any of the speakers who are offering that message offer any examples. They offered no examples, and they have no working knowledge of how the promotional system within Garda Síochána works, how the interviewing and how the competitions within it operates to get people to the stage where they are then politically appointed. And that comes to my next point, because Deputy Ross's bill wants Dáil Éireann to appoint the Garda Commissioner. Sure, that's farcical. I mean, if we're going to have a situation where we're going to have an independent policing board and take politics out of the appointing of our senior Garda officers, and we're going to move it into Dáil Éireann, well, you come on and give us a bit of a break. Like, where does the sensationalism and the populism end in relation to this? We know where it starts, but where does it end? So it's wrong for a government as an executive to appoint somebody, but they're open to account, they're open to questioning, they're open to be turfed out of office by the electorate, as happens quite frequently in elections in this country. So that's wrong, but it's right to have 100 and whatever we're going to be at the next 158 TDs in the next Dáil. It's right for them to appoint the next Garda Commissioner. That doesn't make any sense at all. I think what we need to move to in relation to our independent policing board is a model where we have civic society, interest groups, people who are properly qualified sitting on the board of an independent police board in this country, and who will drive the organisation forward. And they are the people, they are the men and the women who will recruit the Chief Executive Officer of the Independent Police Board, and they will recruit, I think, and this is the practice in the north of Ireland, it is the practice in Scotland, and it is the practice with the vast majority of independent policing authorities around the country. They are the people who recruit the Garda Commissioner or the Chief Constable, the Chief of Police, or whatever the title of the person at the head of that organisation. That is the way it should be done. And to come in here and to offer a quango, which isn't required, and in fairness to Deputy Ross, he campaigns on quangos, and yet he wants to establish a new quango. It doesn't seem to make any sense at all. And as part of the bill, ironically, the bill talks about a TLAC-style operation, top-level appointments commission, which is what we have for the appointment of the top civil servants. Deputy Ross is very vocal at calling that the insiders promoting the insiders. So, you know, where the hypocrisy, and it just knows no bounds in relation to it. I think what we need to do is we need to learn from the experience of Northern Ireland. We need to learn from the experience in Scotland. And I partook on a trip last week with the Justice Committee, where we went and spoke to those organisations. And ironically, I felt so strong about it. I'm in politics nearly 10 years since I got into local politics in 2004 and national politics in it's the first trip I've ever gone on. Would you believe that? It's the first junket I ever went on. It was 2 days, Belfast and over to Edinburgh. I was living it up. But I was that interested in trying to get this right that I said, you know what, I'm going to go on this one. And we went for a day and a half and we packed in 6 meetings. And it was very, very interesting to hear how they went about it. And they had a very structured, transparent system for the appointment of their senior officers. And then, as a result, when the independent policing boards meet, as they do quite regularly, they meet in private, they meet in public, similar to what we do in our committees here. They meet in committee and subcommittee, and they break it down. They're able to challenge and hold their chief of police, their Garda commissioner, their chief constable, the head of the police force. They're able to hold that person to account. Why? Because they appointed the person. And you can't subcontract out the blame to some other quango. And you know, one of the biggest criticisms I have of the public is the Local Appointments Commission. Because the Local Appointments Commission appoints county managers and city managers, local authority managers. And they're hugely powerful and influential. They've got huge reserved functions. And they're untouchable. And nobody can query or criticise their work. They're in an untouchable space, and that is wrong. I think local authority managers should be appointed by the members of the local authority that they serve, in the same way that we're talking about this in relation to the Independent Policing Authority. Now, in relation to Farmley, I think it's a very good exercise which is going to take place. I'm not able to go to it, but I'm sending my researcher, Minister, if that's okay with you. I think one of the many positives that we took out of the trip last week was in Northern Ireland. The present police ombudsman in Northern Ireland was formerly, in a previous role, he was head of the Criminal Justice Inspectorate. Now, in this country, we've got an Inspector of Prisons and we've got the Garda Inspectorate. In the North of Ireland jurisdiction and in others, they have an inspectorate which covers the remainder of the criminal justice system. They look at the courts, they look at the DPP's office, and God knows we've had problems with the DPP's office, and we don't have oversight. You know, we don't have transparent oversight of the DPP's office. We don't know the standards that they operate to. And I think there is merit in us looking at, rather than having standalone separate inspectorates like the Garda Inspectorate, Inspector of Prisons, that we would look at an all-encompassing criminal justice system inspectorate. I think it would have merit, and it would also feed nicely into the new proposed policing authority. I want to say I hold no brief for any of the people who are incumbents or want-to-bes into the positions. I want to say I wish Noreen O'Sullivan well in her acting capacity. There was a small hiccup at the Justice Committee, and in fairness, she put it right and she was blindsided. And she made a very positive start with the whistleblowers. I want to give her credit, and I want to give all the members of Garda Síochána credit, because crime statistics are going in the right direction. Now, we have issues in Dublin, unfortunately, which are ravaging the streets. We've had the situation where the 6-year-old child was shot in Ballyfermot in a botched gangland-style hit. We also had the situation in Clondalkin where the 16-year-old was attacked over the weekend. Unbelievable. There's no justification, there's no excuse, or there is no tolerance. And we have to support Garda Síochána. Absolutely, I think our communities have to support Garda Síochána. And I would ask you, Minister, just to pick up one point in relation to the Garda Inspectorate, Bob Olson's report today in relation to transport. And it's an old chestnut, and we all get it because we meet members of Garda Síochána every day of the week. We need to have a multi-annual dedicated budget for fleet management. They need to know what they have coming year on year for capital expenditure on their fleets. The fleet isn't fit for purpose, and we're outside of the Greater Dublin area on the East Coast. You know the situation. We're a rural, dispersed population, and we need a mobile police service to support our our population and to keep them safe. So I just want to conclude in relation to that. I think the bill is ill thought out. It doesn't make sense at all, because the people who are supporting the bill are also supporting an independent policing authority. Now, in this regard, you can't support this bill and want an independent policing authority which is going to be devoid of its most important function in appointing its most senior police officer. Thank you.